So, my objectives for this session are to show you how social media and other web tools can help you boost the profile of yourself and increase the reach of your research, and hopefully therefore increase the impact of your research. So we'll start by looking at the social media tools that have the most potential in a research context. Some of which you've probably heard of already, like Twitter, and some of which you likely won't have heard of. And as well as talking about the benefits, I'll talk about the pitfalls of each particular tool as well. I'll try and give you some examples of academics who successfully used social media to boost their profile, and we'll look at how they've done that. And we'll also look at some of the trends and the emerging tools in social media. And finally, we'll look at how you manage your identity online. Before we do that, I should start by explaining what social media actually is. And if you look on the internet for a definition of social media, you will come up with dozens and dozens of different definitions. And that's probably because it's still an evolving term, and the technologies around social media are still evolving. But it essentially boils down to online conversation. Just like with offline conversations, there are interesting and relevant ones, and there are mundane and pointless ones. Unfortunately, social media has a reputation for the latter. It's just celebrities posting what they have for breakfast is quite a common thought of what social media is about. But if you seek out and engage with the right people on social media, you can have hugely productive conversations. So why should you engage with social media, and what can social media do for you? In the physical world, people take time to build and further their professional reputation. And that's seen as an important part of any academic career. Social media is just another way of doing that. It's a very good way of furthering your professional reputation. The more you engage and answer questions and pose questions online, the more you boost your online profile, the more you raise awareness of yourself and of your research. So boosting your online profile has the effect of boosting your offline profile and reputation as well. Social media is also a great way of keeping up to date professionally. Quite often the conversations that happen online are more cutting edge and up to date than the traditional methods of communication. And of course, one of social media's most useful attributes is that for networking, for meeting new people. And I'm going to look at a case study specifically about that later. But now we'll start to look at some of the social media tools that are particularly useful for research. No talk on social media would be complete without mentioning Twitter. Twitter's probably the most well-used social media tool for research-related conversations. If you've never used Twitter before, it consists of lots of short messages called tweets. Unlike Facebook, Twitter is very open. Anyone can read and follow and engage with anyone else on there, which is why it's particularly good for academic conversations. There are ways of restricting your Twitter profile, but that really misses the point of it. It's intended to be about open conversation. In a nutshell, what happens on Twitter is someone says something, that's a tweet, and if other people find it interesting, they retweet it. That effectively forwards it on to their network of followers. And that allows the relevant and interesting tweets to surface through the drone of all the other tweets that we have. And there are a lot of them. So retweets are also a way of finding those users who are worthwhile following. You can see this is an example from the ESCS International Twitter page, and this bottom tweet down here. This is a tweet that Wiki Progress sent out that I found interesting about income inequality, so I decided to follow that on to my report. What you can't see from this is I've sent out tweets there about your recently better life, and that other people have found those tweets interesting and they've then passed them on to their network of followers. can see how interesting conversations get picked out and get cascaded around. You notice how some of the tweets include @ signs and hash signs. And these have specific meaning on Twitter. I'm not going to go into the specifics of how Twitter works. I could take up the whole session, but I've created a list of resources, some of which will help you get started with Twitter, and I'll explain what all of these are about, and we'll look into that slightly later. In particular, the LSE have produced a guide which explains the use of Twitter in a research context, which you can do. If you are only going to use one social media site, Twitter is really the one. There are lots of researchers already using it, and you're almost certain to find something there that's of interest to you. Twitter does have a few drawbacks, however. I mentioned the stereotype of celebrities tweeting about you, and more than any other social media, Twitter is the reason for that stereotype. There's a lot said on Twitter that it's not global. But you'll find that the more you use it, the more you get better at filtering out the less useful tweets. And scanning is a very essential skill to develop with Twitter. Don't feel as though you need to read every single tweet. If something is important and you miss it in scanning, someone else will retweet it, so you will still pick up that important information. If you try and read everything that ends up in Twitter, you'll just get overwhelmed and abandoned. So I want to give you an example of how Twitter can open opportunities. So this is Lisa Jeskins, she's a chartered librarian who looks after the outreach activities for co-packing archives, book sources and labs. So she does quite a lot of talking both online and Lisa is one of the more prolific tweeters at Magnus, and she engages with Twitter every day, and she's used it to build a network of about 800 followers. So I asked Lisa about what she thought were the biggest benefits of using Twitter for her career. And she said that having discussions online helps her strike up conversations at real life events like this. She recognises people at the conference because she follows them on Twitter because they're in a similar field to her. And she uses that as a way to then start conversations with people. And when she starts the conversations, because she's followed them online and she knows about what they're doing, she feels as though she already kind of knows them. There's kind of a handle there that she can talk about more. Last year, Lisa had a conversation on Twitter with someone who she'd never met before, but she was interested in what they were doing. That led to a meeting at a conference, and eventually this person asked her to author a chapter in the book that he was writing. So that was an opportunity that Lisa would have missed had she not been on Twitter. And Lisa's story is far from an isolated one. And if you're interested in more case studies of social media and research, the Research Information Network has put together a list of case studies on their website. Academia.edu is another very good site for raising your professional profile. Its functionality is much more like that of Facebook or LinkedIn than Twitter, but it's specifically designed for academics, as well as all the usual things you'd expect, so status updates and following others. It allows you to upload papers and put on details of talks that you're doing and specify your research interests, and follow others who are working in the same kind of research area as you. And because it's organised by institution and by department, it makes it quite easy to find people that are working in the same area as you. One very good feature of academia.edu is how it's optimised for search engines. When you create a profile, it appears in Google search results. And it has a very good feature that when someone clicks on that your profile from Google, it will tell you that someone's clicked on it from Google, and it will also tell you how they found it, the search term that they entered on Google. Very clever, slightly scary stuff, but useful nonetheless. One problem with this site is that it doesn't seem to have reached the critical mass of users yet. So a bit of a lack of conversation going on. And I do hope that changes because I think this site has really good potential in research. One type of social media site that's often overlooked as research to a bit of video sharing sites such as YouTube. And many people think that because they're just full of music videos or videos of people's cats. That's true to an extent, but it can also be a very good way of reaching a larger audience. One of the most successful examples of a YouTube channel that showcases research is the TED Talks channel. I just want to show you a very quick clip from that.
When I first started talking about this research outside of academia, out with companies and schools, the very first thing they said to never do is to start your talk with a graph. The very first thing I wanted to do is start my talk with a graph. This graph looks boring, but this graph is the reason that I get excited and wake up every morning. And this graph doesn't even mean anything. It's fake data. What we found is if I got this data back studying you here in the room, I would be thrilled because there's very clearly a trend that's going on there, and that means that I can get published, which is all that really matters. The fact that there's one weird red dot that's up above the curve, there's one weird in the room, you know who you are, I saw you earlier. That's no problem. That's no problem, as most of you know, because I can just delete that dot. I can delete that dot because that's clearly a measurement error, and we know that's a measurement error because it's messing up my data. So one of the very first things that we teach people in economics and statistics and business and psychology courses is how, in a statistically valid way, do we eliminate the weirdos? How do we eliminate the outliers? So that we can find the line of best fit, which is fantastic if I'm trying to find out how many Advil the average person should be taking, too. But if I'm interested in potential, if I'm interested in your potential or for happiness or productivity or energy or creativity, what we're doing is we're creating the cult of the average with science.
At Mimas, we use video sharing sites as a way of disseminating our content further. For the ACS International Service, we organise an annual conference each year, and we get around 60 to 80 delegates. In 2009, we started uploading videos of the conference to YouTube, we set up a YouTube channel, and now that has around about, it's closing in on 7,000 views and views. So that's a massive increase in the reach of that conference. It's not bad considering there are no cats in there. So, one thing about YouTube video is not to worry that your videos aren't as polished or they aren't as engaging as say that kind of video. Even if it's just created using a mobile phone, just upload it and people will watch it. They don't expect very high polished videos. One issue to be aware of, particularly with YouTube, is the number of what are called trolls and flaming that goes on. The troll being the name for a person that posts inflammatory comments with the aim of provoking a reaction and flaming being hostile and insulting responses. And sadly, they're very, very common on YouTube videos. My advice to that is just don't let these trolls upset you or offend you, and just don't get drawn into the kind of conversations that you're trying to create. So most of us spend a lot of time searching the web for content that's relevant to us, and more often than not, when starting a piece of research, we turn to Google or we're searching. Sometimes we're not entirely sure what it is we're looking for, or we're interested in what others, our peers, are looking at online. And that's where social bookmarking comes in. Twitter, Facebook, and the like do a limited form of social bookmarking with people posting things on their feed. But social bookmarking sites offer a way of storing, managing, and searching online resources. They work just like you bookmark pages in your browser. If you use your web browser's feature, you probably found out that your browser bookmark quickly becomes filled up and a mess, which is silly test. A bit. Highlights the point. Unlike a web browser which organises bookmarks hierarchically, social bookmarking sites employ a tagging system which allows and encourages you to add tags to each bookmark you create. By adding tags, it makes it easier for you to find a particular bookmark later. As many users are adding the same bookmarks and they're adding their own tags, some of which are the same, some of which are different. you end up with a very large kind of social indexing system. This type of social classification is called taxonomy, and it allows the social bookmarking sites to derive information about the web page and about you, and then it will suggest other sites that are of interest to you, much in the same way that Amazon suggests books that you might like as well. And it'll also suggest other users who are similar to you and have similar interests in you and same sort of things. You can create lists of bookmarks around certain subjects for sharing, and you can also invite others to contribute to your lists, which is very handy for collaboration. So I've created this list for today. If you were to go to that URL at the top, social media for research, you'll go to the delicious bookmarking site where I've put together a list of all the things that I've mentioned in this talk, as well as some of the content that you've made that's interesting. There are several social bookmarking sites to choose from, each of which has slightly different functionality. So in this list I've added a link to the page that reviews the top 10 sites and goes into the main features of each one, so you can choose one that's relevant to you. One social bookmarking site that I do particularly like is Digo. As well as saving and tagging, Digo allows you to annotate web pages with highlights and sticky notes, and you can then share these annotations with others. Digo also allows you to archive a version of the web page. This is particularly useful if you're citing a web page in your research, because the web page can disappear or it can change. So with this feature, you can make sure you're always able to reproduce the citing. Social bookmarking, as well as being good to organisation and discovery of resources, also increases the visibility of your online presence, just like Twitter and academia. There's a strong and growing argument that publicly funded research should be more accessible to the public. Most scientific publications, if they're accessible to the public, are impenetrable to the layperson. One way of getting information about your research out to the public in a way that's accessible to them is to publish a blog. A blog is basically an easy way of writing about something on the internet without the hassle of building and maintaining a full-fledged website. Usually blogs allow readers to comment on writers' posts. Blogs are a fantastic way of making access to research more widely available, not just to the public, but to to your peers. There's usually a significant lag between research being done and it being published in online channels, and a blog can help fill that gap. If you do decide that blogging is something you want to try, it's very easy to set them up. You just go to a site like WordPress, create an account, enter a few details, and you can start publishing posts straight away, and you can then start publicising them via your social networks. And again, in the delicious bookmark list, I've added an article and a video that goes through how to set up a blog and which blogging sites are available and some general blogging tips. Blogging doesn't have to be just text. If you want to make it more interesting, you can create video blog entries. And I'll show you one of these now. This is Gareth Morris, who's a research associate at the University of Salford and social worker. Blogs about homelessness and exclusion, and in this video blog he talks about why he thinks researchers should use the blog.
I'm just doing a short video blog today about reasons why researchers should use blogs. The reason for doing this is because since I've been doing homeless in Stoke, I've met some people who've done blogs for researching and been really successful, and I'm also starting to meet people who are doing it for the first time, and I thought I'd share a few thoughts about why I think that using a blog is good for researchers. So reason number one is public engagement. Being able to use a blog is a way of being able to get information about your research out there to the public for them to access whenever they want. It also has an impact for the ref as well. If you start to think about how there's an expectation that researchers are going to start disseminating their research more widely for the public to use. The second reason is to raise a profile and a digital identity. So instead of just being known amongst your own, in your own circle, you can start to find people with similar interests, or more people who are interested in what you're doing. You can be found more easily. The third reason, along with that, is networking. So you can start to find people who have got similar interests to you in places all over the world, not just within your own university or within your own field. The fourth reason is to practice writing, because you can be doing it every day if you want to, and not just when there's an outcome like a journal article or a magazine article that you're writing. The fifth reason is it helps you to shape your thoughts, because you're doing it more often. It gives you time to think and reflect about what you've done and shape those thoughts and ideas and put them down. And the sixth reason is that it allows you to get your material out there quickly, and because it's just a blog, you maintain the editing rights of it overall, so it doesn't go through any peer review process or any other sort of filtering system. It can just be said as you want it to be. The seventh reason is that you can get a response quite quickly. Once you put a blog out there, people can comment on it straight away. They might comment in 6 months' time when they found it. It can be there as long as you want, and it's a way of getting good feedback. And the last reason is because once you start using a blog, you start to realise there's a bigger world out there in terms of social media, and it just opens your eyes to these different things and tools that you can use, which you can exploit to disseminate your work.
So I should tell you that blogging is not always popular. Not everyone agrees that blogging has a place in research. This is a quote from the well-known rock star turned physicist Brian Cox. And he argues that blogging is a bad idea because it circumvents the peer review process. Whether you agree with that or not is up to you to decide, and I've included in the delicious list of opinion piece from the Guardian which goes into both sides of those arguments in detail. Personally, I see a need for both. Blogs as a way of opening up research and engaging with the public in terms that they can understand, whilst the peer-reviewed articles and papers remain a way of publishing detailed results to the academic community. The other reason you might have to be cautious about setting up a blog is the time investment. All of the tools that I've shown today are things that only require a few minutes of your time each day, but blogging can put significantly more of your time to keep it updated and to keep it fresh. There are lots of other social media tools available. Just to touch quickly on a few others. Facebook is, of course, the largest social network. It has around 800 million users compared to 140 million on Twitter. However, most people that I've spoken to prefer to keep Facebook for their personal lives and Twitter for their professional lives. And I think a lot of that's down to the distinction between open conversations and private conversations. Twitter is open by default, Facebook is more restricted. Having said that, there are some people, particularly teenagers, for whom Facebook is the internet, and they rarely go to any other site. So if you want to use social networking for, say, teaching, then Facebook is far the best thing. LinkedIn is a social network exclusively for professional networking. Unfortunately, to me, it feels a bit like an online CV. There are lots of recruitment consultants on there, but there seems to be very little meaningful discussion. Pinterest is one of the newest social media sites, and that's aimed at graphics and visual media, which might not seem to have an immediate research potential, but it seems to be evolving into a useful site for sharing information through graphics. I'll talk about graphics in a moment. Google Plus is Google's latest attempt to win market share from Twitter and Facebook. It has some interesting features like Hangouts, where you can have video conversations with multiple participants. However, it doesn't seem to garner great amounts of interest, and as with any social network, it's only as valuable as the people using it. Google has one other problem, and that's its terms of use. This is an extract from the Google terms of use, which will take a minute to read out a few bits of it. When you upload or otherwise split content to our services, you can Google and those we work with a worldwide license to use, host, store, reproduce, modify, create derivative works, communicate, publish, publicly perform, publicly display and distribute such content. And it goes on to say this license continues even if you stop using our services. So this clause allows people to do pretty much whatever it likes with your content, either now or in the future. And you have no method to revoke permission for them to do that, even if you delete the content. I talked earlier about YouTube, and YouTube is part of Google, and that's all about the same conditions. Highlighting Google, because it has one of the worst terms and conditions of the social media sites. Twitter is much better, and I have actually sat down and read all these terms and conditions. Having said that it's much better, I'd still encourage you to read them and be aware of the terms before you start using them on your site. Now, although some of the terms and conditions are pretty bad, they're not, in my opinion, a reason not to use social media. I say that because I think the risk of missing out on the valuable opportunities presented by social media and getting left behind is greater than the risk posed by potential users of the data through these terms and conditions. I think the same argument holds true when considering privacy. Many people argue quite correctly that using social media will impinge on their privacy, and it will to a degree, but again, for me, the risk of not using it and missing the opportunities is greater. And I think careful management of your online presence helps to mitigate these risks. If you're just starting out with social media, it can seem a little bit intimidating. People are often not sure where to start. This model, the engagement cycle, was published last week by the Cabinet Office as a guide for civil servants who are starting out tweeting. But it also works just as well for academics. So you start at the first point, you start at number one, and you move through as you build your confidence and comfort. And the cycle starts with listening to conversations on your own research area. In Twitter parlance, this is called lurking. It sounds very sinister, but it's not intended to be like that. In fact, Time magazine reported in September that 40% of Twitter users are lurkers. They're people who regularly log in but don't actually post content themselves. When you start to get more comfortable with it, you can work your way through the rest of the steps, starting asking questions and then answering them, retweeting other things, and eventually starting to chat to people socially. When it comes to promoting your research, if there's some element of your research that you really want to make stand out, you want to encourage people to share on with others, then creating an infographic is a very good way of doing this. An infographic is basically a visual representation of some data or information. And it can make your content much more visually appealing and can have more impact on the reader. And that encourages them to share it more widely. Until recently, creating infographics required photoshops and the skills of a graphic designer. However, quite recently, some sites have started to pop up that allow you to create infographics fairly easily just by dragging and dropping around some templates and some really creative graphics that gives you more text. I've listed a few of them on the top there, and again these slides will be relevant to download. Many of the sites that I've listed here are still in a beta phase, and this is a trend that's only just getting started, so a lot of these sites have bugs or missing features, but it's something to keep an eye on for the future. Many researchers starting out with social media worry about their online presence. I'd like to show you this video created by Matt Carrigan of Warwick, which talks about this.
When it comes to managing online identity as a researcher, a lot of people suffer from a quite understandable but avoidable generalised sense of fear. That because it's quite a new way of communicating for researchers, it's easy to feel apprehensive without being particularly specific about what the object of that apprehension is. So I think it's very important, if you start to think about these issues, to just be clear with yourself about exactly what you take the risks to be and how you define the risks. The risks you perceive are going to be to some extent a personal matter. And to think through these things in a systematic and indeed researcher-like way, it's important to be clear about the mediums themselves, because all mediums are public. All involve posting, publishing in the public sphere to varying extents. The mediums are public in different ways. For instance, Twitter and Facebook. The amount of control that you're able to exercise over who you post and how you post varies from platform to platform. And the default settings vary from platform to platform. And furthermore, the internet is a very big place, and it's easy to forget this. And it's important to keep in mind that the people you're most likely to interact with will be other researchers, probably in similar areas to yourself. And so, although there are traces as well of everything you do online, these are also something you can predict, be aware of, and control. Because at the end of the day, managing online identity as a researcher is ultimately a matter of common sense. It's just that the environment you're operating in is so new, particularly within the research world, that this common sense isn't quite as obvious as it might be, say, at academic conferences. But at heart, it's just a matter of thinking about what you post and being clear about the implications it might hold to have that in the public domain. Being aware, being self-conscious, being strategic, but not being paralysed by a generalised sense of risk about the potential pitfalls of publishing online as a researcher.
Another common concern about social media is how to make time for it. Social media will absorb as much time as you give it, so I'd encourage you to be disciplined about it and set yourself some limits. Dip into it maybe a couple of times a day, say 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon. A few of us start work straight away anyway when we sit at our desks, so going through your Twitter feed can be a nice kind of warm-up and warm-down to be done. Remember what I said earlier about skim reading and not trying to read everything. If it's important, someone will repeat it. And as Jane mentioned this morning, linking between your various online profiles helps boost your visibility in search engines. So it's a very good thing to do. Also, if your institution allows you to create a profile on its website, that's a good place to put links out to your other social networks. And all that is taken into account by the search engines and boosts your rankings online. It's also worth checking out if your institution has any social media guidelines or social media policy, as they may help you may tell you what, from an institution point of view, you are allowed or not allowed to do. Institutions have different views on it. So I'd just like to conclude by saying that academic conversations that are important are happening online now. More and more researchers are realising the value that social media can add to their research and are cultivating their online presence quite carefully. So engaging with social media can really improve your profile and can open a lot of opportunities for you.